So first, when we got access to GPT-4 very early, we were all just blown away. We had like 2 weeks where the team did nothing but play with it, build different applications, try different things, and every day, our minds were blown with new things that were possible. I mean, initially, the biggest challenge was grounding. We had lots, especially shipping this thing in the context of a search engine.
Yes.
Grounding's really important. And so that was initially the biggest challenge, which is one of the reasons we did that precise mode to help with that. And I would say the biggest challenge at this point is actually what I would call like responsible AI. And that's a very wide range of things, from political bias to trying to keep from the model from telling Kevin Ross he should break up with his wife. There's a whole range of that copyrighted content that, when you're building a production consumer service, expectations are very high. There's regulatory issues and just our responsibility to users using this to be fair and balanced. That is a constant struggle.
Synthesia.
Brad, how are you?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me. It's exciting to be here.
I'm super excited to have you. Thankfully, I mean, we've known each other for a number of years. We've had a lot of great talks. As we were prepping for this, we had an amazing discussion around some of the things. But let's get right to it. You joined Microsoft a couple of years ago. You got thrown into the deep end with Bing Chat with Bing, and then transforming the search experience. So why don't you tell these people what you're doing, and let's get I think you're going to start with a presentation. Slides.
So like you said, a couple of years ago, I had a chance to join Microsoft. And I did it because I was really excited about this large language model space and what could happen here, what could the potential be. And what I joined the Turing team, who were building some of these TNLG models that you talked about earlier. And I wanted to do a small incubation project. Let's just prove that this can work for search. And little did I know what would happen. And it just sort of blew up with this Bing Chat project. So it's been really exciting to see. I included this cartoon here that some of you may recognize, is sort of poking fun at Bing. Maybe we had both the high point of my time here on Bing Chat, and also the most stressful was when we had a front page New York Times article listing a 300-turn conversation that a reporter for the New York Times, Kevin Roos, had with Bing Chat. And I was both amazingly impressed at our product and deeply scared at the same time. So it was a stressful time for us, but it was also, I think, a watershed moment in this large language model space and what could happen, both perils as well as benefits. And so we'll talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Go for it.
Yeah, so just want to give people just a high-level overview of Bing Chat. Hopefully, you'll go and use it right now while we're talking here. But we have this dedicated landing page for Bing Chat, and you can see we have the user query and context there in the purple box. And then one thing that really differentiates Bing Chat is it's deeply integrated into the search engine. It's not something that's been tacked on. That happens to use a few APIs, but really deeply in the search engine. And so we're showing that in the UI by indicating the actual searches we do for information seeking queries. The model will actually create searches. And you can see it did the first search there for Tour de France in 2023 winter, and didn't get enough information to form the answer. So it decided to do another search to include average speed. And then you see in the model response here, it actually uses that information from both of those searches. We actually cite all the results here to make sure not only you understand where it's coming from, but actually it helps the model do a better job of being grounded if we force it to cite any factual response it gives, it makes it much more grounded.
Can I just ask you a quick question about this?
Yeah.
Because I've always really liked this about the UI, that you actually show what's happening, as
Yeah,
opposed to what search is the black box, right? It's just like
right,
we put something in, something comes back, we don't
right.
know what happens. But you're actually giving us a sense of what is happening in the background. Why did you decide to do that?
Yeah. So the very first demos that we did, we had it kind of showing up in the demos, but then we had to have a long conversation with the UX team and some of our management about like why to do that. I mean, I think the biggest piece of it is to help users understand the amount of work that's being done for you under the covers here. Because one of the things that we're trying to differentiate ourselves on is we want to have the best quality results, the best grounded, meaning like attributed sources, highest quality in terms of output and readability, and coherence of the conversation. And the reality is some of that takes some time. And so what we didn't want to do is show a spinner, hello, a thing is happening. We wanted
Yes.
to indicate to users like a thing is happening now. Like imagine how long it would take you to go do 2, 3, and I've seen sometimes 10 searches. I want to challenge your audience today. How many searches can you get Bing Chat to go do to answer your question? How long would it take you to do those searches, click through every result on there, find the answer, and sort of Bing's doing that for you here.
Perfect.
So, but we do have these creative answers as well. Notice if I say write a haiku, it doesn't necessarily do a search, not needed for that. But it does give it to us in a nice format there. And then of course, you can write code as well. I certainly use this for writing code on almost a daily basis. It's a big use case for us. But I started to allude to this a little bit, but I wanted to give you sort of our architecture diagram here. Like how do we conceptually think about Bing Chat working? If you think about on the left-hand side there, the user query comes in and any context about that. And we feed that to our orchestrator. And we're using the Sydney name here. If you've been following the industry, that's the code name of our project that sort of has leaked out. So we're embracing that. So we have the Sydney orchestrator, and it's deciding what tool to go use, like when to go do searching, like index ranking answers, when to go do searching, and when to go hit the large language model. So for a query like what's the weather, it'll come in to the Sydney orchestrator. The orchestrator will ask the large language model, hey, do you need to do a search here? And if it's so, what query do you want to search for? It'll pass, the large language model will decide that, pass it back into the search stack, get relevant live up to the second answer to that, give it back to the orchestrator, and then show that answer with citations and suggestions. So that's a high level idea of how Bing Chat works. Let's look at a couple of other examples and how this is kind of deeply integrated into Bing. So, we're putting it right here on the bing.com homepage. You can jump right in and try these queries. So a handful of sample queries are there. You can scroll down. The idea is chat is always there. It's kind of, we don't think of it as a separate product, but we think of it as part of Bing Search. And in some sense, it's the next generation of Bing Search. So you can see that experience is right there. But we also want to recognize that, the 10 blue links, the standard search result page has been around for many years and users are very comfortable with that. So we have to meet users where they are. So we are starting with that. You can see we have the standard 10 blue links in Bing today. But then also you notice on that right-hand side there, we have a generative answer where we've actually gone and queried the model. It's the exact same experience you get in this full-on chat mode is available to you there. And notice it's actually digesting that content that's on the page and giving you a direct answer to your question.
Yeah, so I have a question about this, Brad, because I think this is really interesting. If we look at ChatGPT, which a lot of people started using for search, initially, It's a different experience. It's in many ways it's more like the old Google search box, but it's just like
Yeah.
with no fanfare. It's just
Right.
information in, information out. Perplexity does sort of the same thing. And actually, the Bing chat interface that you showed just a couple minutes ago was not the traditional search experience. It's a more of a chat interface.
That's right. That's right.
But I'm really interested in this idea of adoption, and
Yeah.
people are very familiar with the 10 blue links. And
Yes.
it's really interesting that like you just put it on the side there.
Yeah.
Is that because you're trying to ease people into it? You're trying to raise visibility? What was the thinking behind it?
Yeah. The thinking there is that right. We want to bring an audience to chat. And look, we recognize, like I said, that people are very familiar with how search works today. And we want to give people a bridge in. Like if you just ask people to jump to a brand new way to do things, I mean, you'll get the early adopters, but to get the majority, it's going to take some time and to get them familiar with it. And so we've been playing with this sort of right-hand side experience. You'll see some other treatments of it as we kind of experiment with different ways to help users get familiar with what this new experience can be. So yeah, speaking of that, once you jump in though to that deep chat experience, we still think of this as a search experience. And so just like search, several years ago realized that just the 10 blue links weren't enough. We needed to have these answer cards as well. So we're bringing those visual, immersive answer cards. So what's happening here is we're getting the forecast for Leavenworth, and you get this nice generative response that's well grounded and cited, but then you're also getting this big, beautiful answer card that you can just glance at in a moment and know what it is. And we have these answer cards for every answer that we have in Bing is now available in chat.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. So when did Bing Chat first go multimodal? It was a few months ago, but it seems like it's much more recent that it's like I see it a lot.
Yeah. So we keep increasing the set of answer cards. I think we've had weather from day one. We're pulling in the answer cards, as we can over time, and pulling in a lot more images too over time. There's lots of different entity-based images, doing image search, doing video search. So right now we're doing a very basic search, kind of the default search, but over time you can imagine, searching for videos of cup toss or whatever, and get kind of deeper answers and sprinkle those in here. So yes, speaking of multimodal, it's a good lead in. We also have image creator. So from within chat, you can actually get access to, we just launched DALL-E 3, which is kind of the latest generation of image creation. And I think this, it's not only a delightful thing to do, it's pretty amazing to do like these follow-up conversations as well, because I assert no one has ever gone to one of these image creators and got it right on their first prompt. And so being able to have like these suggestion chips and you being able to refine your previous one, I think really matters a lot.
Absolutely.
And then
was Bing Create not DALL-E 3 from the beginning? It really just seemed better than DALL-E 2.
Yeah, no, I think what was better is sort of some of the prompt generation we did, but no, it was
in the background.
DALL-E 3 recently.
So your meta prompts were making it.
Yeah, we're making it a little bit better. There's more we can do, but yeah.
Fair enough.
And then relatively recently, last month or so, we've launched the other side of it, image understanding. So now you can actually go in and select an image. You can take a picture with your phone or select an image. This is a hand-drawn sketch that I did of a web page. And then, I'm a little rusty in HTML. So, hey, could you create this HTML for me? And notice it's creating all of this code. I can go in and refine that, and then I can copy that into VS Code and get a basic experience working pretty quickly here. So great tool, really can democratize creation, which I think is very exciting. This image creation scenario, this image understanding scenario is really popular on mobile. So we actually have this great mobile app. I actually think the mobile app is the best way to experience Bing Chat. So I encourage you to go download that. It's got really nice voice support. So voice in, voice out. It's got, like I said, the image understanding support, image creation. It's the whole Bing Chat experience right here on your phone, and just having it just a tap away always is really helpful. It settles arguments between my wife and I quite frequently. So really encourage you to try that out.
I'm not sure about settling arguments that way.
Yeah, well, yeah. Maybe not settle may not be the right word, but provide more data for. Yeah.
There's a question from Costas in the chat that is
yeah.
So it's got the 3 buttons there: more precise, more balanced, etc.
Yeah.
During initial search, is this more than just setting the temperature? Is there more going on behind the scenes?
There is. So let me roll back. Yeah, this is a good one. It is more than setting the temperature. So more creative is powered mostly by GPT-4. So it's the larger model people are familiar with. It has a slightly different prompt, kind of meta prompt in the background that we've done to make the answers a little bit richer and more creative. We actually don't change the temperature because that has a bunch of other side effects, but we do make it more creative. And then more precise is a fine-tuned version of GPT-4, where we have worked closely with OpenAI to fine-tune it to pay a lot of attention to the grounding data. I mean, we always pay attention to the grounding data, but this more precise is a GPT-4 fine-tuned model that really, really pays attention. So I encourage you to use more precise if you're doing like some activity where getting exactly the right answer is really important, and maybe the more speculative kind of like creative activities are less important, then use more precise. And then balanced is, as the name would apply, kind of a halfway point in between there. It's a fair bit faster. So if you just need to get an answer quickly, balanced is the way to go.
Excellent.
Okay. But good question. Keep them coming. Okay, so I was going to go into group chat. Really had fun with this launch too. We actually did it very early in the history of Bing Chat, but I think it didn't get its due because it does something very powerful. It's actually within Skype. You can have a group chat with your family members or the set of people go on vacation with you, and you can include Bing Chat in that conversation. And so it's great fun to be able to, anybody in the conversation can at Bing and ask a question, and everybody can see the answers. So it's a really useful way to sort of bring data into these group conversations. So I encourage you to try that if you're a Skype user. And then really recently, we've launched Windows Copilot. It's being rolled out on Windows 11 as we speak, so you'll get that very soon. And essentially, it's that great Bing Chat experience, but conveniently located on your sidebar there. And what's really nice about it is just like what we did with Edge. This is also available in Edge right now today. You can download Edge and get it. It's contextually grounded based on the windows you have open. Right now, it's especially Edge. So if you have a web page in Edge and ask a question, it will know the answer from reading that exact web page as well as doing the searches. And then over time, we're adding more contextual grounding for other windows that you may have open or other state you may be in. So really kind of your day-to-day Copilot that's always available knows the context of what's going on your PC.
Yeah, just on that point, this idea of having the Copilot on the side of, not just your desktop, but like on the side, like for browsing.
Right.
I think this could fundamentally change the way we have to think about building websites.
Yes. You're saying because we have to understand that people may not read every line of our web page, but may just go in and ask the model, hey, what was the top score, or how did
Well,
this
yeah, and it
end, or
provides a
whatever.
summary
Yes,
automatically on the side. If I've got it, if I've got the
exactly.
panel open, I go there, and it's something that your web team actually has to look at, because now you've got
Yes.
this third party Bing, or could be one of the
Yep.
other
Yep.
players, who's then just saying, hey, this is what this website and this web page are all about.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. Yes. I mean, my hope is that, the idea is the model understands the content. So hopefully you don't have to like craft content for it, but it is a good check. Like, you, as a content creator, go see what Bing Chat summary of your webpage is. It's like, takes you probably 10 seconds to do that with Edge. And you can get a sense for maybe what your readers think of it too, because it's kind of a good proxy for that.
Right.
So that's, sorry. Yeah. One other point here. Many of us, Brent and I were talking about this the other day. Many of us are using these tools in our day-to-day job. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know how I could do my job without Bing Chat at this point. I use it to write PRDs, to write emails, to write content that ends up going into the chat experience. I actually take pictures of our UI and ask for feedback from the model. Like, look at this. Can you give me, how would an enterprise customer, or how would a user, in this state think of this UI, and get bullet pointed feedback. So we're all using this in our work lives in really deep ways. But I think many people are rightly concerned about what happens to the logs there, what happens to those questions and whatnot. And so we've launched Bing Chat for Enterprise, which is available included for most enterprises today, because it's included in most Office license. It's already included. And then it's available for some nominal price for everyone else. And really, we just wanted to make that available to users that are really concerned about the logging and what's happening with the data. So it's a tailored experience for that. But it's got all the things I just said about Bing Chat, even Windows Copilot. It has an enterprise flavor of it. It's available. Okay, so I wanted to chat a little. I want to revisit this diagram and kind of go into it in a little bit more detail. This is factually accurate at the day we launched, but as you just saw, all those tools and features that we've built, and the 15 more that I'm actively trying to get launched, the model is expanding. And so if you look at where we are with first-party tools, we started with one tool, which was search. And now we've already added several more. So for example, we now have image creation and image understanding, and even ads generation, because we want to make these models, which, as you mentioned earlier, Brett, are kind of expensive to run. We want to make them available to everyone. Like, we believe in democratizing this information, and the reality of the situation is we need to pay the bills. And so we actually have the model come up with when's a good time to show an ad, and what ad to show. So the way our system works here is, we don't think about these large language models as being a big repository of human information. They are. But what's interesting is the emergent behavior that comes from having all that information, is that it's really good at reasoning. These models have very strong reasoning capabilities. And so that's what we want to tap into. We're using the reasoning capabilities of the model, not the knowledge repository. So, and the key point here is, we're using that reasoning to decide what tool to invoke. We think of each of these as a different tool. And the model decides, okay, at this time, I'm going to invoke this tool with this parameter. So I'm going to do image creator with this query, or I'm going to create an ad based on this data, or I'm going to do a search for this information. And
But the key
yeah.
point here, I think, is that Sydney Orchestrator is another type of reasoning LLM Or maybe it's a different, maybe it's not an LLM. You can tell me that, but it's another type of solution that is handling the reasoning. It's not just like you're hitting GPT-4 and GPT-4 is figuring it out, because GPT-4 is just going to predict the next word. It's not going to predict which tool.
Yeah. So what we're doing with the orchestrator is essentially prompting, fine-tuning, focusing the LLMs on the reasoning task. So it does end up hitting those LLMs, but it doesn't do the just generate a response. It does here's the available tools, and here's the conversation in context, which tool should you call and when.
I see. So you're invoking the LLM for a different task before it fulfills the original.
That's right. And that essentially gives it more grounding data, and then it can form a response well cited on all that grounding data, whether it be from image understanding or from search or from a bunch of the other tools that we're creating.
It's just basically automated prompt chaining in the background.
Yes. There is definitely some prompt chaining into this.
Interesting.
But what's really exciting here is that third parties then can also create tools. And we saw ChatGPT launched this a while back. And so we want to be very compatible. So if you have built a ChatGPT manifest, that will work in Bing Chat with no modifications. And we think this just opens the world up in terms of capabilities that the model can access, that Bing Chat is going to be able to do on your behalf. There's just a lot of data that's behind those. People may have subscriptions, may have access to certain data and certain capabilities. They're able to express their preferences by what plugins they enable. So we think this may be kind of a really important part of tool usage, is accessing these third-party tools.
Are you going to have dynamic plugin selection? So right now in the ChatGPT environment, a lot of people know you can only select a limited number at any given time. So you have to intervene in order for it to work. I think you've implemented, it's like compatible, but it's maybe more robust the way you implement.
So two things here. Yeah, we are implemented in a little bit of a different way, kind of in this more of this orchestration tool use model that we've discussed. So that is a little bit of a difference, and we're really focused on getting high quality results. And then, as you mentioned too, discovery is a big part of making this thing successful. And so not ready right now, but soon you'll see some great discovery of these, because the model, like, we know we have these 10,000 plugins available. And for some query, we might say, oh, look, this plugin or these two plugins will be really applicable to that query. Would you like to reissue it, but with this plugin enabled?
Oh yeah, that's good UX. And there's a question in the chat about what context window you enable for this.
So the size of the context window?
Yes.
So it varies by model. So the creative one, I don't know if I could give the exact numbers. The creative one has much more context. So if you're doing deep research, creative and precise both have much larger context windows.
Great. That's really useful. Thanks.
Okay. So why don't I just show a couple of quick demos, and then we can press on. So I think I'm sharing the Bing Chat homepage now, or the Bing homepage.
Yes.
So you can see we have right here on the homepage. I invite you to check it out in real time. You can go try any of these queries. It jumps you right into Bing. In addition, I guess I wanted to show you live too. I did this morning too. What happens if Congress can't elect, which I typoed possibly on purpose, a new speaker by end of the year? And notice the 10 search results sort of address it, but don't quite address it. But here on the right-hand side, we're getting well-grounded results from Bing Chat that is happy to engage in a speculative conversation like that, kind of what if, but based on citations there. And then from here, you can click on any of the suggestion chips and jump right into Bing Chat. And you can see it's going to go and do that search and then generate the answer and it knows kind of contextually the previous turn of the conversation and is going to give us an answer that's sort of relevant from that previous turn. But I jumped into the homepage. Here's a more recent view of the homepage. Lots of queries for you to start with if you're not sure where to begin. I encourage you to try all of these. In addition, we have recent activity, so you can kind of see what I've been doing as I prepared for this demo. You can jump back into all your previous conversations and see those here. A little teaser for plugins that will be available. You probably don't have them unless you're one of the lucky 5% that are in our flight. You probably don't have those, but that will be available really soon. And then, also preparing for this, I wanted to know what VoiceBot has been saying about Bing Chat. Bing did my research for me here. Notice I can give feedback on this. I can also export this to Word or PDF if I want to go ahead and create a paper or something based on this. And then, so here I had us write a poem about AI, and notice it gave me this very nice poem, and it even created an image to sort of go along with the poem. So very interesting. And you can see I just said to create an image, and it came up with the prompt to DALL-E to be able to create that image.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then last one, just to show real quick, a picture of my refrigerator. You can say, what should I make for dinner? We all have this problem. And Bing Chat's got some great ideas for me. Notice how it actually got the data from the image understanding model, used that tool, and then it looked at the results and said, oh, I'm going to need to do a search. So it did a search based on that data, and then kind of joined those two things and gave a really nice.
And that's the Sydney Orchestrator making those decisions.
That's right. The Sydney Orchestrator is making those decisions and orchestrating the calls of the different tools, what data to bring in to the model, to the prompt of the model, so that it can generate these great results.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Let's just bring that down for then, for sort of final question. We've run a little long, but this has been great. I really appreciate you going so deep on this and answering a bunch of our questions as you've been going through it. I'm particularly interested in your experience when you first started out. So you had, GPT-3 at the time, or maybe GPT-4, you were coming up. What surprised you most, and what was sort of the biggest challenge, initially in bringing it to launch, and then what's been the biggest challenge since then?
I mean, the biggest challenge initially, so first, when we got access to GPT-4 very early, we were all just blown away. We had 2 weeks where the team did nothing but play with it, build different applications, try different things, and every day, our minds were blown with new things that were possible. I mean, initially, the biggest challenge was grounding. We had lots, especially shipping this thing in the context of a search engine.
Yes.
Grounding's really important. And so that was initially the biggest challenge, which is one of the reasons we did that precise mode to help with that. And I would say the biggest challenge at this point is actually what I would call responsible AI. And that's a very wide range of things, from political bias to trying to keep from the model from telling Kevin Ross he should break up with his wife. There's a whole range of that copyrighted content that, when you're building a production consumer service, expectations are very high. There's regulatory issues, and just our responsibility to users using this to be fair and balanced. That is a constant struggle.
So, I mean, the other thing too is latency. You and I have talked about this. Yeah. Latency's come down a lot since you first launched. There might be some variables there, but I guess two things. One is just what have you done along those lines? But also what's an acceptable amount of time from a user? Because we're used to milliseconds with the 10 blue links, and nobody's doing milliseconds. They're doing several seconds and maybe even double-digit seconds right now. What have you found in that? And then how have you done it?
Yep, yep. So yeah, a lot of work on latency. I agree that's been a big thing. We're actually using the Azure hosted, you mentioned earlier, we're using the Azure hosted version of these models. We've done a bunch of work on concurrency. How much concurrency do we have can increase our latency. We've also done a lot of optimizations in the stack that goes through, and being thoughtful about prompt size. It's directly proportional to tokens in and tokens out. So like if you're passing in irrelevant data that's not going to be used anyway, maybe you could trim that. And I think there's a lot more work left to do. To answer your question about where it's going, like we're going to get to milliseconds. I'm confident that will happen as the model gets much more fine-tuned to specific use cases, and we get better at hosting and better at like traffic prediction and whatnot. Like I think you're going to see latency get to much quicker. But at the same time, we're also going to be doing more tools, and asking the model to do more things and whatever. So
yeah, true.
It'll be an interesting balance.
It's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
And when is your personal prediction of when most search is generative search versus the traditional search?
That is going to be years. It's the same question you could ask about when will most cars be electric cars. It will happen. Most cars will, but when that break-even point is, I don't know. I think maybe one metric to go look at is new users. When will most new users, let's just take this next generation coming up, gravitate. I know my son's a freshman in college, and he primarily uses these generative search tools. So I think that's going to be the measure. I think we'll see a breaking point there, and then it'll take a while for everyone else.
Well, thanks so much. I noticed a bunch of people have just like downloaded Bing Chat on mobile.
Excellent. Looking forward to the spike in traffic. Yes.
So this has been great. Everybody go check that out. Brad Abrams, thanks so much for joining us today.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Synthedia, the business and technology of generative AI. Generative AI, synthetic media, large language models, image generators, virtual humans, voice clones, deepfakes, ChatGPT, and more.